Hey there. This episode originally aired on my Patreon many months ago, so some of the information might be a little bit outdated by now. If you'd like to check out episodes as soon as they come out, you can join my $3 tier over there, or you can subscribe to check out full episodes coming here eventually. Either way, the choice is yours. Enjoy the show. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Pat's Creative Podcast, Episode 3. We have an official title now. How crazy is that? It's so exciting. Last time you were here, Talon, we didn't even have a name for the show. Pat's Creative Podcast, patented TMR, all that stuff. Except it's not. You can steal it if you want. I don't care. There's a lot of people named Pat, and they might want to do creative podcasts. Today, I'm joined by Talon Stradley once again. Feel free to introduce yourself, my friend.
Hi, I'm Talon. I'm a creator and producer at Newton's Dark Room. I do podcasts. I do music under a Mighty Rabbit. I've done film and radio and all kinds of stuff. And I'm here to talk about Pat, about the creative process.
I thought we were here to talk about like Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul and stuff like that.
We did talk about Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul for a good 10 minutes at least.
We had to get it out of our systems. That was a good show.
We also had to check. We had to check by levels, of course.
Of course. We also had to check levels and whatnot. But today we're actually not talking about Better Call Saul or Breaking Bad as much, although you should watch those if you get the chance. We are going to be talking about networking and collaboration. That's kind of the theme of this episode. We're going to be going into both like how to find people to collaborate with, how to physically organize events with people to collaborate, and how to follow through, how to take the initial messaging and all that good stuff. Everything that kind of revolves around that. And I thought, what better person to join me than Talon Stradley, who has collaborated with tons of people in his lifetime and also has collaborated in a professional way tons of time, which is always nice. And I think that might be kind of a good place to kind of start off. When you're kind of collaborating with people, you want to make it as clear as possible what level of professionalism you're bringing into it. Because a lot of times, if you just grab a couple of friends around with you and you say, hey, I'm just filming this silly thing for YouTube or whatnot, they just might not take it as seriously. You know, they might not arrive on the time you want them to arrive at. They might be like, yeah, we'll get around to it. You know, that'd be fun sometime. Or they might quit halfway through. I know, Talon, you've probably collaborated with a lot of people who have just like bailed, not because they didn't totally realize like how far you were actually taking the project.
The first ever major project that I really worked on with like a collaborators and that kind of thing was this podcast called Tales of Passing Fantasy. And it came about, it was an idea that I had for a while. I had some, various scripts written. It was like this anthology kind of show. I was in a theater show at Orange Coast College at the time. I talked to other people about it. They wanted to do it, got this team together. So we had about 6 writers. We had a pool of like 30 actors that we were pulling from, very professional in that sense. But it was also very difficult. We were producing an hour of content and we were writing, recording it, editing, and all of that in 1 month, which is insane. And so we were very much working back to back. There were some other issues as well. Like I said, like the fact that we didn't have a back catalog meant that we had absolutely no way of, having any kind of barrier,
right?
Or back things to burn up. And then I work at a summer camp during the summer, and we're all at Orange Coast College. So once the summer hit and people, went back to their home state, or I went up to work, then it became very difficult to work and it kind of fell apart.
Right.
Ever since then, I've been very careful about making sure that I don't try to start something too ambitious that I can't finish it, and particularly with other collaborators, right?
Right.
And I think that I like you kind of mentioned, like a really important fact is setting expectations, right?
Yeah.
It's like, what is the kind of thing that we're creating here? I recorded a song for a school project recently where I had my friend Luke come over to record trumpet. It was a pretty casual thing. I wasn't able to give him like a trumpet line. It was just him coming in, playing for a little bit, and I edited it. But it was also for a school project. So for me, my main goal was just to get it done and also just to practice and get a feel for it. So it was fun and exciting.
And he knew, like, going in, that's what was going down.
Yeah.
He knew it wasn't going to be some big studio recording where you planned on monetizing your music and stuff like that.
Like, he knew he was coming to my garage. He knew, and we got to talk and catch up. It'd been a while, so it was a fun, casual thing.
Of course.
On the other side of things, my podcast series, Main Street Mythology, was my first time since Tales of Passing Fantasy working with outside voice actors or with I basically have been producing everything just by myself after Tales because I wanted to make something that I could do on my own. I wanted to, kind of feel that out. And with that had a very different vibe because I actually reached out to different actors. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to pay anybody. I didn't have the capital at the time, but I always try to pay my people if I can. And going forward, that's going to be a big thing since now I kind of have that footing. But that was very much like, here's the expectation. So like with the voice actors, I said, okay, here's the lines. Here's the kind of file formats I want to get from you. Here is, how I want you to record and how I want you to set it up for me to edit. Here is, uh, the pronunciations, all that kind of stuff. Here's how many times I'm going to ask you to retake it, right? Because
Right.
if I want them to redo something, then I don't want to keep asking them again and again and again. Like, they have volunteered to do this thing with me. I want for them to know very clearly, hey, there's a chance they might ask you to re-record some lines, but we'll never do that more than this.
Right.
And so, and I think that set a very good tone for that piece, where people understood that I had a plan, that it was
Hmm.
professional, and it was the same thing for our music composer who was helping out with things. Um, and at the end of the day, like I said, like, it was an amateur production. I wasn't paying them. I haven't gotten any money off of that.
Sure.
It was, decently successful for my standards, but it's not like it, like, popped off or anything like that.
Sure.
And so our musician did have to drop out halfway through because they just had other things going on. It was taking a little more time than expected. And so, where I wanted to have an original piece for every story, there were some songs I had to reuse, which was
Right.
fine. But
Sure.
throughout all of that, it was communicative. The stuff that I got from her was very professional. Her La Troyenne is her name. Go check her out because I do really enjoy her music. That's why I asked her to help with this. But yeah, but expectations are important. If you're doing a huge thing, let people know this is what you expect and be very clear. I don't think it's
Yeah.
enough to say this is a big actual creative project. Dedicate all your time to this. Like, I
Right.
own you. Like, this is what you have to do. Like, if you don't want this, then get out, kind of deal.
Because
That's
that could
preposterous.
totally have the opposite effect. If you like
Oh,
go
yeah.
way too heavy saying like, hey, this is going to be my life's work, so you better not mess this up. Who's going to want to work with that? They'd be like, no, shoot, get someone better than
Exactly.
me. Like, I don't want to do that.
And it shows that you don't know what you're doing. Like,
Right.
if you don't have a plan, if your thing is to dedicate all your time, and the thing is, there's lots of people out there. Like, if you're not the one actively seeking to add or to get collaborators, you might be approached by someone who's looking to collaborate, and there's a good chance that they have this personality, this idea that I'm creating the world and come out and work for me, and come rally and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
My first project was very much felt like that. Looking back on it now, where I was this person, people liked the stuff that I was creating, they wanted to work with me, we all created this thing, and it kind of went out there. um we were in college, which is the time to make things and mess up. But if you're looking for collaborators, be a plan. Know what you want from them. And if you don't know what you want, type something up. It's like, you're the
Yeah.
person who has to sit down and edit those at the end of the day. You
Right.
need to give them the direction that you feel is appropriate,
Yeah.
for the expectations are set.
And so much headache can be like avoided just by giving these directions before the actual project. I mean, like,
Yes.
if you start laying all these like new things on these guys while they're filming, then like naturally they're just going to feel burnt out at some point, or just not have the proper commitment or just the proper direction as to where they're going. So
Yeah.
just making it very clear, because like you said earlier, like when you brought your friend over just for like the school project or whatnot, you don't have to have everything on some industry professional level of you're not every project has to be entirely professionally competent, if you will. Like, it's okay to do like those smaller things. It's just whenever you're inviting people to your project or your sphere of creators or whatnot, you want to make sure that all their involvement is laid down in front of them before it gets going, so that like that, and then that's just how that people will stick with it and go through with it all the way. I know like different projects require different levels of commitment. I do a lot of stuff with like gameplay and whatnot, and there's a lot of projects in that where you literally show up, you talk funny while you play, and then you're good. And it's like people can do that for like 20 minutes. It's very little commitment value. You don't even need to schedule it. Sometimes it just kind of happens a lot of times. But then there's other projects like UHCs where it's going to require every individual person to record their whole perspective and upload and add descriptions and add titles and use the intro and whatnot. And you start piling all this stuff. If they don't understand that's their level of commitment from the get-go, 9 times out of 10, they're not going to actually end up uploading their footage or whatnot.
Oh yeah.
And so it's just, different projects require different levels of commitment, but as long as you like set that as the boundaries beforehand, let them know, then they'll probably be more likely to go through with it. Or they'll tell you like, yo, I'm just not up for this. I don't have this kind of commitment. And you're like, that's fine. I'm glad I know now, instead of spending all these hours on this project, that I have to now find someone else to replace you like halfway through or whatnot.
Exactly.
And some like helpful tips with that, like even just if you're messaging people online, if you're networking online and trying to collaborate through, maybe you're doing also gameplay stuff, or you're just looking for someone to voice a script or something like that. Your initial message, if you've never met this person at all and you just want to initially message them, being as professional as possible in the message can just go so long ways. I've gotten several messages before that have just been like, hey, do you want to join this like UHC I'm doing? Like, it's on this day or whatnot. And a lot of times I'm just like, you're not giving me enough to work with. Like, I don't want to commit to something that I don't think is actually going to be very much worth either your time or my time, right? Now there's some other projects, like if people I know better, they might just shoot me a message and be like, hey, be here in 5 minutes. I'm there. Like, it just depends on like who you know or whatnot.
Yeah.
But it's a very helpful skill to learn, to be able to professionally introduce yourself and your project both clearly and also directly, without like padding it up a lot. I've gotten a lot of messages that go the opposite way, where they attempt to be professional by adding all of this like fluffiness to it to make it feel like there's a lot more content than's actually there. Your message doesn't necessarily have to be like a 5-paragraph invite or whatnot, right? You can very clearly and directly explain what the project is, and that is like the true level of professionalism.
Oh, definitely. If you are going to be approaching someone, right? As if they say, yeah, you have all the time in the world to figure out the details and to give them more information, but you got to get them interested first.
Right.
And a big thing that any creative project should have, whether it's a YouTube channel, podcast, news, whatever, is a succinct pitch. A lot of like, there's this one guy that I listen to that talks about a 10-word pitch. So it's like, you have your show. If you cannot explain that show and what makes it unique and interesting in 10 words, then you got to find something else or figure it out. It's like, so cut that down. And that way you can just be like, this is what my show's about. My show is, about an artist collective living on an island and they make stuff. There it is. And pitches to collaborate are the same thing, right? Like maybe you already have your project set, but if you say, hey, here's my 10-word thing, this is what my show's about. This is the role that I want you in. There's a character who does, hey, this is my show, blah, blah, blah. I have a character who is a violin player on the street and I need you, it pays this much or it doesn't pay, or it's going to take us 3 hours to record. And then, and then it'll be released on this day, hopefully to this audience, and like, and let them know what's going to be in it for them. Right. So if some guy messages you and is like, hey, do you want to be in my UHC? You might be like, I don't know, like this might not be beneficial, but if they say, hey, we're a slightly larger channel, we like reaching out to other people, or we like your personality, or, we think you can expose you to more people, then they're going to be more likely to do that. So let them know why they want to be on your show.
Right.
And again, succinct, professional. And if they come back and they're using emojis and laughing and, smiley face and all that, you can match their tone. Yeah.
Right.
But, it's always easier to start more professional and then ease up, as opposed to starting like a joke and then trying to muster up something professional.
If you start as a joke, you're going to be seen as a joke from the get-go. And
potentially.
What they say is true about how important first impressions are. It's why when you go to a job interview or whatnot, you also try to be more professional, or you try to have a firm handshake, all those things, remain eye contact. All that stuff can loosen as time goes on once they actually know who you are. The worst thing that can happen, though, is if someone thinks of you completely differently than what you actually are and how dedicated you are to your project. If they just don't see that from the get-go, it's going to be really hard to kind of gain their trust in that like front. So just being professional from the get-go and cherry picking the information you want to give them what's essential for them to know and what's most exciting about the project. You really don't want to give your whole life story as to why you started this. I got a UHC invite once that was talking about how like, it was a really wholesome message, to be fair. Like, I'm not trying to shame the guy or anything, but he was saying a lot of like, he doesn't have a lot of friends online. He thought this would be a great way to try to like get more friends and hang out. And he kind of like started with all that. And then when I was looking through this message, I didn't actually get any information on the project itself. And I did end up asking for more information because, like I said, it was a wholesome message. It's just pretty much every time I have sent a professional message to someone for like an invite where I was very clear and to the point as to what I needed from them and what they would gain from it and the most exciting parts about the project, almost every time it's worked out. And then, to be fair, you also kind of have to know who's more likely to accept and who's less likely to accept. And that's a whole nother minefield. And I wasn't shooting message to ginormous creators or anything to get their help or whatnot, because I understand my level of outreach to other creators. And that's just another thing we could transition into is just you really need to understand not exactly your reputation, but you need to understand your, like I said, outreach towards other people, because there's going to be some people that you're not really going to be able to get to. And it's better to first spend your time towards the people who are more likely to join you in your collaborative journeys than to, immediately shoot message towards some like the really, really large outreaching people. And that's just, kind of common sense. Like if people get millions of messages every day, they're less likely to see yours. But if you find someone who not only creates similar content to you or has a similar level of dedication, or someone who you're friends with, even like, and you've known them for a while, and you know that they would enjoy this, then always try to shoot them the message first, and then your outreach changes as time goes on or whatnot, and eventually there might be someone who you thought you'd never be able to collaborate with, and then you suddenly collaborate them or whatnot. But you've really got to understand. You got to pick who you send your invites to.
With all that being said, though, I think you'd be surprised at how, I don't know, because it kind of goes back to the professionalism, right?
Right.
You can reach out to larger creators if you're a professional.
Oh, definitely.
Obviously, if you send a message or you comment on like PewDiePie's video and you're like, hey, do you want to like come on my video? Like, he's not going to come on there.
Right.
But if you, especially for like maybe the mid-level guy, if you find their email address or their DM, or, a lot of people have like a contact page or something, or sometimes they have Patreon, so you can contact that through them, and then you send them a professional message and you say, hey, I do this, I would love to do that. I reached out to people who, like for example, I forget his name, but the guy who produces The Truth, which is one of the most popular fiction podcasts out there. I tweeted at him asking him a question. He responded and I said, hey, would you want to be interviewed for this show? And he was like, yeah, like I would love to do that. Like send it a thing to my contact page.
Right.
Unfortunately, I wasn't able to follow up at that time. I might still try to do that some other time. But that was someone who I in my mind, I was never going to be able to really get into. But, suddenly I have my little following. I'm there. I'm respectful and professional. And that might be a thing. They might not see it, especially if they have tons of messages. But if it's professional, it's not like it's going to hurt you. It's not like all of a sudden you pop off later and then they remember that time that you like told them off because they wouldn't join your thing or whatever. So be professional, be courteous, and reach out to people of all sizes. And you'd be surprised about the kind of opportunities you can get by doing stuff like that.
Right. And when I was talking about earlier about like spending your time towards people who are more guaranteed to be in your project, I didn't mean you shouldn't like send it to big creators.
But you can't expect it.
Right.
Like,
you
can't
don't
expect messages
bank
back
on like new people coming in, and specifically because like I can remember a handful of unprofessional messages I shot out to like bigger creators being like, Minecraft series, dude, come on, let's go. Yeah. And naturally no response. But it's not like if they don't see my response, it's not like I'm embarrassing myself. So you should never feel embarrassed for writing a professional message to invite people to your project. And just the higher the professionalism, or at least clarity in where your professionalism stands, the more likely they will actually accept it. And the thing is, creators are creators at heart. And ultimately, if you're giving them a good creative opportunity, they're going to at least have some level of interest in it, right?
Oh yeah, especially if they don't have to do all the legwork, right? It's like for example with this, it's so easy for you to ask me to come on here, and it's so easy for me to say yes because at the end of the day, I'm not the one that has to edit these or upload the videos or create the thumbnails or that kind of thing. But my face still gets out there. It's still stuff that I can retweet. It's still stuff that I can say.
And I think it's fair to say you also just enjoy talking about this stuff.
I love talking about this stuff.
Right,
I love
it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, but giving people those opportunities, like it is fun to create this kind of stuff, especially, in the gaming world where it's like, oh, you're playing video games. That's awesome. That's fun. Yeah. Like, let's do it. Yeah.
A while back, I used to do some channel interviews where I would take channels that were, I don't want to say big channels or small channels, but I took channels that had a relatively bigger outreach than mine and brought them on for interviews and asked them about like different things. At the time, I didn't really have a proper creative mindset when I was going about it. I was admittedly just trying to see how big of a fish I could catch to literally do an interview. And I didn't really like that mindset, which is why I stopped doing it. However, I'm now planning on bringing that back possibly in some future Pat's Creative Podcasts. There might be episodes where I have some relatively larger creators, specifically talking about creation and stuff like this, but in more of an interview style. So if that excites you, then hopefully that excites you. I don't know. But either way, the thing is, like, I'm pretty confident I can get one or two people out here because this is a genuinely interesting collaborative project, at least to that demographic or whatnot. So just never be ashamed for at least asking. The only thing you do is waste a couple minutes of typing out a message. But just be careful with your message. Don't treat your message as just a regular like hi or whatnot or hello. You gotta actually put in the legwork and show that you're willing to put in the legwork so that they know that you're willing to carry the project for them. And
Yeah, and be polite and recognize that everybody has better things to do than message you.
Oh, definitely, definitely.
As horrible as it might sound, it's like,
yeah, and don't take it personally. Not everybody's going to work with you. That's fine. There's plenty of fish in the sea.
Yeah, it's like you are asking for people's time. Be polite, be respectful, be professional. Worst case scenario, they don't respond, or they respond meanly, and then you just move on to the next one. That's fine, as long as you're professional and nice, like you didn't do anything wrong.
You're gonna get a million mean messages online. You can't get hung up over one. You gotta move on. You're gonna get mean messages.
Welcome to the internet.
Welcome to the internet. That's a beautiful, beautiful thing. So that's just kind of like some general rules of thumb. Like, treat your project with the amount of respect you want to present to the other people. So just so that everybody's on the same page when they go in. There's goofier projects out there. You can be goofy about those or whatnot. Just make sure it's just clarity. It's all just about clarity and transparency and not wasting their time. Never try to waste someone's time when you're inviting them on. It's nice of them to join you, and you don't want to make them feel unwelcome or whatnot. So now that we're kind of talking about people actually in the project, Talon, do you have any experience with like possibly someone coming in and then just like they either felt unwelcomed or you felt like unwelcomed by them, almost like where you felt like maybe I shouldn't have brought this person in or whatnot?
So
yeah, I mean, I'm not asking to give any names, and you don't have, you can get as broad as possible. You don't have to give any.
I'll definitely say I felt it, and it's even hard for me to pin down exact moments where that happened. In high school, I was involved with as an actor. Somebody brought me on to help them with their senior project, and I actually did this for 2 separate senior projects. This is not the one I did in senior year. That one actually went very well. They were awesome, and I think they're still making stuff. But the one I did my junior year was rough, because it was somebody who got 2 big eyes. Whenever I talk about the people who will like promise you anything or demand a lot of your time, like this is very much one of those people. The kind of guy who would say he's going to pay you and then not pay you, but then spend $1,000 renting out an empty house for the month for you to shoot in, and then not doing anything in the house, or scheduling, or it was just one of those. Or he like just had like not a great camera, and you're like, okay, you're spending all this stuff, but you're shooting on whatever. Like high school, it's whatever. Like you learn the project, whatever.
Sure.
But I have, and it's hard because you also have to be a people person, right? It's like if you're working with other people, you have to be aware of that. I think setting clear roles helps with that a lot. Like we said a lot about setting expectations. If you have a nice workflow, like you are the writer, you're going to write the stuff. And then we're going to have, you're going to get together. I mean, plan it out. Like if I was going to work on a writer team with, and I'm working as a writer underneath for an anthology series that's coming out kind of soon. And everyone submitted their first drafts. They had a while to submit first drafts. They got together with the team. The team, they had like 3 people: the person who's heading the thing, the head of the like production company we're working with, and then the person in charge of editing scripts like for that company. We got together, they all read it, they gave back their feedback, they give that back to the creators, the writers, and then we know, okay, this is the feedback we give, we incorporate that, we send it back to them, they read it over again, they give us more stuff, we write up character bios, we write up the sound effects, everything that they kind of need, so that it's very clear where people's roles are in this process. And that way that can help a lot with butting heads, or with people overstepping boundaries, right? Or it's a creative process. Everybody has ideas, everybody has thoughts on how it should be done, but if it's very clear you are in charge of this aspect, or you're in charge of this, or you are the creator of the show, so you get ultimate say on this stuff, no matter we say, like setting those boundaries is important, and that helps to curb it a lot. At the end of the day, there's going to be people that you work with that are going to be troublesome, or they're going to maybe give you some issues, and I wish that there was some. And I'm also very young in this process, right? And for the last like 2 or 3 years, I've been working just by myself, to kind of learn just my side of things. But I don't have any like huge tips on that necessarily, because it's always on a 1-by-1 basis. I think that the best thing that you can do at this level and starting off is plan as much as you can, be as clear as you can early on, be communicative, and if you still have issues past that, you're going to learn a lot.
I think with like what you're saying with like just those every once in a while, those instances where those people who don't totally understand the boundaries despite you laying them down clearly or whatnot, it's okay to also like so it can get easily wrapped up in collaborative projects where you're constantly thinking about it and you're constantly talking to the people about it or whatnot. And just through the nature of constantly communicating about a project, naturally, someone's going to have some idea about something that's not pertaining to their actual boundary or whatnot, and they're going to want to share it. And, you know, there's nothing wrong with giving feedback towards like individual pieces of the project, but you can't worry too much about them being offended by you discarding such idea because of like the boundaries that you already laid or the roles that you already set for other people. In the Cakecore group, we've got like around five other people than myself who are in charge of the channel essentially. And every once in a while, you know, we will divvy out specific projects in the channel to specific people or specific series to specific people. And the reason we work so well together is because we understand where each other's roles are. For an example, I make most of the thumbnails on the channel. Everybody has the opportunity to make them, and I'm fine with that because, you know, I want people to be able to explore that creative endeavor or whatnot. For the most part, I'm making a lot of the thumbnails, and for those who don't have any experience in graphic design or whatnot, you know, they're usually fine with just like, okay, yeah, you make the thumbnail for my series. Like, I get that. Like, we're very understanding of each other's roles and everything. We have like this vlog series where every once in a while we film some stuff and we edit it or whatnot. For the most part, that's all kind of spearheaded by Owlton. And he's just kind of got this like vision that I don't really have. And even just camera work or whatnot, I'm not great at filming stuff. I'm not great at holding the camera, getting the right angles and stuff like that. I'm terrible at it, actually, frankly. But Owlton, he's just got this vision. And like with this editing, he's got like this cool modern style that he can put it. He understands what music cues he wants to use or whatnot. And I every time a vlog comes out, just my natural brain as an editor starts thinking of things that I would have done differently. And it's just like, I have to step back sometimes, like, it doesn't matter. Like, this video is good. Like, this is a vision that is his, and I'm not going to outset my boundary to affect some like minute editing thing just because there's one small change that I would do or whatnot. So we all respect each other's boundaries in that front. And we let each other run with our creative projects. But it's okay also to just every once in a while distance yourself from the project a bit, like just kind of step back a little bit. And if you have like a lot, like every once in a while, not just the Cakecore people specifically, but just in the different groups that I've been in, there's been inner conflict between different members or whatnot. It just happens. It's a natural part of creative growth or whatnot. The important part is to just not get super invested into every individual discussion or argument or dispute that's going on. It's okay to totally distance yourself for just a bit, kind of let some of the other members work out a little bit of the stuff. And then if you need, like, if you're the project head and then you need to give a final ruling at some point, you can give the final ruling. But 9 times out of 10, someone understood that when the final ruling was given out. It's like, you know, they have more stuff to worry about than just that one little thing anyway. The problem is if you aren't distancing yourself and you're in the process like 24/7, you're constantly talking to people about it. They don't have anything else to worry about but that one little individual thing, and neither do you. And naturally, like, it's just going to spiral out of control. So you really got to understand, like, give the project some space every once in a while. Give the issue some space. Let it simmer a bit. And, you know, everyone will, like, kind of start resolving it naturally, and then just give your input when necessary, basically.
And also just recognizing that, like, a lot of the times things don't matter, you know, like in the heat of the moment, I think we always think that they matter more.
Definitely.
And
Absolutely.
things are important, but it's like, if it's, you know, this thumbnail versus that, or the title of a video, or an editing choice or whatever, like a majority of the times, by the time you get to the end of the project, you'll be like, oh, that either way would have worked, or we didn't notice it. Or even if it's a horrendous mistake, you're like, man, that was a really bad edit. Like, it's not the end of the world by any means. Like, lots of people put out crap and are fine. You know, it's like,
well, and we talked a lot about this in our first episode too, was just like,
just make stuff.
The process of content creation is just creating things that are slightly better than the thing before. That's just that's where you go with it. So yeah, I think you really hit the nail on the head when you just said a lot of this stuff just doesn't matter, and it's not worth your energy or their energy. So distancing yourself from it really helps other people get a bigger perspective of the bigger project. And it's okay to let, like, smaller pieces of that project just go stalemate for a bit and, like, shed some more light on other projects. You know, if you have 2 writers who are having a dispute or whatnot, with like storyboarding or something, right? You can take the attention away from that for just a bit and like tell them to focus on like character building or something like that. Because it's just like a lot of times it's just those small little things that will go good either way, and it's all preferential. But as creators, you know, we have such passion for what we're creating that sometimes we feel like we need to fight for this. We need to fight for our vision and what we see. And like so many, I've gotten way too heated about things like that before too. Like where I'm just thinking, it needs to be this way because I understand what's good in my head and I need it to be good. When the reality is, whether or not it's that or that, it just doesn't change the overall the project. Most of the time, your project's going to be good enough where that one little thing is not going to affect it. If that one little thing does affect it, maybe your whole project has a problem. Like maybe, maybe it's not interesting enough. You know, if it's all relying on this one little thing. Like if there's a specific line that you're like, wow, this line sounds cheesy as all get out. And the other person's like, no, this is the most fitting line. This is the most important line of the piece. If that one line makes the difference in the whole like short film or whatnot, then maybe your short film's not interesting enough or something. I don't know. It's
definitely a perspective to take. Like, we'll think about it.
Yeah. Go for it.
Have you seen, you watched 30 Rock, right?
I did. Yeah.
Do you remember whenever there's an episode where Liz Lemon looks like she's going to be taking over Jack's job? And at one point, Jax takes her to a lunch meeting, and they're talking about like the decision. Basically, she has to make a decision on like the kinds of buttons that are on the microwave, and then she's like, I don't know what to choose, and he's like, it doesn't matter, you just pick one, and then that's the one, like that's the right one, and so she picks it, and then she goes to this dinner, and she's like getting bonuses, she's like getting thanked for, she's like, were you the button person? That was incredible work. And it doesn't matter. You know, it's like at the end of the day, it's like somebody just has to make the decision.
Yeah.
Most things aren't going to matter. It's not worth debating the buttons on the microwave. It is somebody make a choice, and that is now the right choice, and roll with it.
Yeah. And it's not worth like getting mad over people. Like it's not worth that energy or whatnot. You should save that energy towards actually working towards something.
Yes.
And also, just distancing yourself from the project helps a lot too, because even if you can talk to them about something other than the project for a bit, that smooths things over so nicely most of the time. You know, if you, especially because like, well, in my specific line of work, for lack of a better word, I deal with a lot of people who I consider friends, like people I consider close friends even. And there's a lot of times stuff to talk about other than the project itself. You know, a lot of the people I collaborate with, we play CSGO almost every night. Like, so there's always opportunities to talk to them about other stuff. And we always talk about other stuff. And anytime we have a dispute between them, it's just like an hour to 2 hours can heal all wounds. You know what I mean? Just an hour or 2 hours away from the project, you know, just let everybody really think about it or whatnot. So yeah, I mean, that kind of went a little bit further than what we were originally talking about with like bringing people in. But basically, I mean, team disputes important too, because if you're going to be heading your own projects or whatnot, you're going to have to learn when to step out, when to step in, what battles to pick, what hills to die on. Yeah. That's all stuff that, I mean, you're not going to know on your first project. It's going to take time to really figure all that out. But yeah, you know, being receptive to other people, though, is also a good idea. It's okay to, you want to always want to make sure that the people are being heard too about the concerns for the project or the specific thing. At least acknowledge what they're saying and make sure they know you're acknowledging it. That's the most important thing.
There's been times through not just creative stuff, but just working with people in general, where someone comes up and they suggest something and you immediately are like, this is not going to work at all. You know, like we tried this last year before you got here, it burned in flame. Like, this is just not a good idea. But you let them say it, you let them talk about it, you hear them, and you make them feel heard. And then if you say, yeah, you know what, we'll think about it. And then you later say, you know what, I don't think that's going to be the best call. At least they feel like you considered it, you were there. And that's going to be very important, right?
Absolutely.
Stay respectful, stay receptive, always be polite and empathetic. And if you do that, then hopefully you'll be able to navigate this and be okay.
Yes. Yeah. And it'll just take time. You'll get there. I definitely encourage you guys to experiment with heading your own projects, though, because you can learn so much about creation just through being the organizer behind it all and seeing everybody's different creative processes. And
if you're normally that person, then like follow in somebody else's thing or take on a lesser role.
Absolutely.
Like just getting outside of your comfort zone and working with different people in different ways is going to help out a lot.
Right. And I think that's almost a good segue into just like, I mean, we've kind of been dancing around this, but just letting go of like certain responsibilities at certain times. It's so important to understand what the other side is like. And that's something that I'm still learning to this day, because most of the projects I've been involved in are projects that I have spearheaded it and whatnot. Very rarely am I actually in like other people's like videos or podcasts or whatnot. And it's not so much, I'd like to think it's not because nobody likes me. I think it's just because they know me as like kind of the project header or whatnot. So it's like the projects are usually done by me. And any project that I've been invited to, usually it's like, I want you to help me run this. Like, it's like, I want you to like, I want you to help guide this the way it wants to go. But anytime I'm invited to another podcast, oh my gosh, it's a beautiful thing. You sit back, you talk, and then you're done. And like, it really gives you some perspective, because you'll start having ideas about like what the podcast host is doing. You're going to think like, why is he doing this? Like, this is kind of silly. Like this, why is his introduction so long? What's this bit he's doing or something like that? Right. But like, at the end of the day, you understand that it's his project, just as you want other people to understand that your project is your project, and you sit back and you let it happen. And it's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing. Try to get, I mean, like it, you can't really just get invited to stuff, but make yourself available, make it known to other people. Like,
it's okay and it's okay to reach out to people too. Like, there's some podcasts that I know that have, that will come on and interview people, and it's okay to send a message. Especially in this world, if they have a website, like, always check the website, because there's some places that will blatantly say in the contact page, we are not looking people to interview right now. It's like, we got our setup, we're behind, like, don't even message us about that. So always check in first, but then it's okay to message these people and say, like, I would encourage you to make a press kit. Press kits are great for like professional or networking and stuff, where, what is your show about? Who's your show for? Some different reviews and quotes, just that way that you can send that to someone, they understand, a few samples of your work. And even sending that to like, if you, like, for example, so I'm a, podcast creator, I want to get onto other podcasts that are interviewing podcast creators. Like, that's a great thing for me to post about, to talk about. It might expose you to a new audience. And so there's numerous people that I reached out to, or different newsletters or publications that wrote stuff that I just sent the thing to and said, hey, if you're interested in writing on this, here's the get down to my latest series, or whatever that is. So even if people aren't reaching out to you, because people probably won't reach out to you, especially the people that have a built-up audience, because they have enough people reaching out to them. So I mean, if you see something interesting, reach out.
The nature of starting out as a small creator is just that people don't know you yet. So naturally, even like people who would totally love to collaborate with you, if they did, the chance of them even finding you is like very, very difficult. In last episode, I talked a little bit about like some of the tricks I use for finding other small creators like me, by like searching on YouTube and filtering by like latest upload, just to filter out some of the bigger channels or whatnot. Finding avenues like that, or like going to smaller knit communities like subreddits or even Discord servers or whatnot. It's a great way of finding like-minded people, because it already puts you on the same level. There's an even playing field for those kind of people. So if you go specifically to a playing field that has a lot of other players that are just like you, naturally the people are going to be more inclined to want to hang out and whatnot. Many of my collaborators are just from like communities and small servers and whatnot that I hung out with, and I was like, I really want you in this project or whatnot.
For me, Twitter's been a big thing. It's like when you go on there and like, and it does take a little bit to get going, but like you said, like, you look for the newest, podcasts, you search for that, you look at the newer things. I follow pretty much every single audio fiction that I come across, because especially the smaller, maybe not some of the larger ones, but it's like I want to know what everybody in the industry is doing. I want to know what shows are on the horizon. I want to see what creative things are doing. I want to see if I'm always looking for collaborators. If I see someone who writes in a similar way as me, or I like their stuff, like, let's do something, let's work on something. Right. Definitely get out there. And like you said, actively participating in those communities. That way you're not just the guy who's coming in and saying, okay, now I want to be on people's shows, and then leaving. Like, that's something I really struggle with. I'm very bad at Discord. I have not been posting a lot on Twitter ever since COVID started, but I have to think about that. And that's something I have to consciously do, to say, okay, if I want to, I need to engage with these people. I want to genuinely engage with them. I want to listen to their shows so I can talk to them and be like, hey, I liked this aspect about your thing. Engage with their art and reach out to people.
Well, and you haven't been on Twitter much, and you say you're not using Discord as much either. But the thing is like, there's ways to do this also in the physical world too. Like there's communities that exist offline as well. Even like, if you go to a school, half your job's already done. There's freaking tons of people there, right? Who all have like different majors or whatnot. Or I guess I should specify college, but I mean, even high school, similar.
Oh yeah, no, school, like learning places are great.
And like, what better to find someone who has similar interests to you than looking over to your right at a classmate in a class for your major. They're there. They're right there. So like even just like you want to be present in online communities to kind of gather the respect and also collaborate with those kind of people, be present with people around you too, you know. So many people in the real world are going to want to do creative stuff with you because creative stuff is fun, basically. And so like, you know, college is a great time for that. Even coworkers, you know, if you start hanging out with a lot of your coworkers or whatnot, you end up talking to them for a long period of time. You know, it's you just end up naturally networking, basically, just through living and being present. Unless you specifically try to be a hermit, which I don't recommend. I don't think that's a super healthy thing. But I know just being there for people and hearing people out and whatnot, it all adds to this building up a sphere of people you can create with. And after a period of time doing that now, I wouldn't be able to count how many people I could actually rely on if I invited them to a creative project or whatnot. And it's a very helpful thing. The only reason I just bring Talon on this podcast is because I just want to talk to Talon, because this guy's got a lot of creative insight.
We don't catch up a lot outside of these podcasts.
That's what's so funny, because like I feel like the stuff we would catch up on though is stuff that we're talking about right now. We've found a way to turn just you and I regular conversations into content here. Because like even before this podcast was a thing, like we would spend like at least a couple hours or sometimes some time after the Soda Popcast or whatnot, just talking about creative things, like just talking about creation in general. And that just kind of goes to another thing that I briefly went over last episode, but like finding ways to turn regular life avenues into content, like mixing the two, could sometimes be a really good thing, because you know, it's like almost turning something mundane or boring, or at least something typical into like something more fun and creative and whatnot.
Yeah, that's what I did with my show Cochlea, which is just about some audio stuff, is because I was studying audio and it was a good way for me to study.
That example is the specific example I brought up last episode when I talked about because I was like, this guy Talon, like he's got this thing he's learning this for school already, you know, like why not be able to mix those two so you can have fun while you do it. Also, it's just something that you're passionate about, and obviously, like that's just what we're doing here too. Is we're just talking about creative stuff because we both really find that fun, like enjoyable and whatnot. But you know, also you don't want to turn everything into content. That's a steep hill to go down to. You don't want to film every moment of your life, obviously.
No, there was this. I heard the story of this guy. I forgot where I heard it. I wish I remembered, but he literally just started recording everything, like just audio. Like he wasn't running around with the video camera, but he literally like mic'd himself up, and he always had that running. And it was a very interesting episode. It was a podcast episode somewhere, but talking about how that impacted his life and the other people, you know, and people felt uncomfortable talking to him, or the way that he acted, right? Because when you know people are listening, you're acting a little bit differently.
Definitely.
You know, be smart about it. Definitely leave room to take breaks and leave like that. These past couple months have very, very much been that for me. I started 2020, which was supposed to be very ambitious. And there was another thing I knew, like I might be biting off more than I can chew here, but I think I can do it. Right. And then COVID hit and just completely like flatlined that, which sucks, but you know, it's what happens. You know, so now it's like take the break. These past couple months have very much been me relaxing. I'm going into my final year of school. I am the president of the Digital Media Arts Club there. And, you know, so there's a lot of cool stuff happening for me, and I'm very excited. But I know it can also be a lot. So it's okay if I take a little break. It's okay if I post a little bit less often.
Definitely.
You know, because at the same time I have like the biggest stuff I've ever worked on in the pipeline. You know, like part of the reason why it's big is because it takes more time to get up and get going and all that kind of stuff. But I'm still working on things. It's just less of a like, you know, updating every single second or looking for a bunch of avenues to turn into podcasts. It's like it's okay to relax. Take a little break
distance yourself, you know, let your project will be there when you come back. You know what I mean? Your creative ideas, they're not going to go anywhere. They'll be there. You just might have to find them again. You know, no matter how much time you take away, your inspiration was there for a reason, and you will be able to find it again if you go for it. Sometimes it might not be worth it. Sometimes it might be worth it to go towards other projects, but it's always there. The idea, the spark, it's there. I'm actually also kind of in the middle of a bit of a creative break. Most of the stuff that I've been uploading,
I think a lot of us are.
I mean, well, when COVID kind of hit, I kind of reacted a little differently, because usually with kind of more tough real world stuff, I go a little bit heavier with creation or whatnot, and I kind
Yeah.
of start grinding it out a bit. But because I was going pretty heavy, there was a point in time where I just realized like, I needed to like just take some little bit of time off or whatnot. And I already went so heavy that like my backlog was ridiculous. Probably the biggest backlog I've had since YouTube started. So like I'm actually technically right now in the middle of like a creative break or whatnot. And now I come back to this podcast and I feel absolutely refreshed or whatnot. You know, I don't feel brain dead or so. Yeah, taking breaks is important.
Creating again.
Yeah.
Especially after, as I mentioned to you earlier, outside of this, I got a new cat recently, so a lot of my energy has been focused on getting that. But once that settles down a little bit, then I'm out of school for the rest of July. My work is dying down, and I can finally like, okay, what are we doing here?
All right, I've got a creative question for you that doesn't really pertain so much to collaboration. We might be just moving off that topic a little bit, but
go for it.
The question is like, when you take a break of something creatively, do you find that your mind immediately starts looking for something else to like completely focus on? Like, is this cat right now just something that your mind is like, lately it's been really focused on this, now I just need to focus on like something else? Or is it literally
I
just
think so.
No.
I think because I'm always like that.
Right.
There's always like some kind of projects that I'm researching or doing. Like before this cat, I was building a like a DIY synthesizer. So I was taking the studio maintenance class. I was looking into a lot of that, trying to learn electronics, resistor, all that kind of stuff. I normally have something like that going on in my life. And I actually really enjoy that part of me, and that learning and the researching. And I think that influences my work a lot. And I think part of the reason why I feel so creatively drained and why I've been taking such a long break is because I have less opportunities for that since I'm not going to school, since I'm not interacting. And so I think that's actually been a downside. But for me, whenever I tend to take breaks and really kind of like find myself and take that thing, my brain isn't like, oh, what if this is a story? What if this is maybe a little bit here and there, but they're rarely good ideas. And I'm not like sitting down, like outlining the whole thing.
Well, I meant less like you're coming up with ideas, but more like, do you have to preoccupy your mind with something else to fill in that space, that time that you previously allocated to?
Because I think for me, it always comes in better relationships with the people around me.
Gotcha.
That's how my breaks tend to come about. Because whenever I'm creating, especially like, I don't know, I feel like I'm a very fickle creator at times. It's like I'm very much like, if I'm in the mood to write, then write. If I'm in the mood to do this, do this. And I've had that luxury because I haven't been doing this for a job, right?
Right.
And so that aspect of things means that there's sometimes where I'm in the zone, right, where I might get home, nobody's home, and it's the perfect time to write, and I start writing, then 10 minutes later somebody comes home, and then that puts me in kind of like a hostile position with them, which is all on me, right?
Sure.
And I think that whenever I take those creative breaks, I'm not expecting myself to create anything. I'm not looking to create anything. And so instead, even if I've been playing a lot of League of Legends lately, right? Because me and my roommate are quarantined at home. We both enjoy the game. But we don't enjoy playing it on our own, but we enjoy playing it together. So we get together and we play, and we have that bond, right? Or I've been able to spend a lot more time with my girlfriend. Things like that is where I guess my mind goes, or the stuff that takes up the space that was created by this heavy creationist kind of thing.
Right.
And I really enjoyed that. I value these breaks a lot.
Yes. I think it's like the same for me too. Whenever I do take a break of like creative stuff, it's usually because I preoccupy my mind with more like you said, relationship building and whatnot, and strengthening your bonds with people around you. But I think part of that is just my mind automatically kind of sees that almost as a creative project. I don't know if that's like a sociopath thing to say. I'm not trying to dissect my mind right now, but I think like I just, with my mind separating things into like projects or whatnot and seeing it come into fruition, I almost take even just regular relationships and see like, this is something I need to strengthen, just as I would like take a video or something like this is a project that needs refining or whatnot. It's kind of like just a weird way my mind pictures it. But, like if I notice like I'm not just getting along with a certain person or whatnot that I normally am, and I don't want that to be the case, then, whenever I take breaks of off creative stuff, I try to like rework towards that or whatnot. But I feel like for me, it's mostly out of compulsion. Like I feel like my brain has to be occupied thinking about something to work on most of the time, even when I do take these breaks. Even if that's just like cooking. Like when I kind of stopped recording for a bit, like a couple weeks ago, my mind really went towards like, I got to better my cooking craft for some reason. All of a sudden, I feel like I need to make better eggs. Like that's just what it is. So. But I don't know. I think just giving projects room to breathe, though, in general, can just help them flourish.
Yeah.
And then also help keep your sanity. If you are just constantly creating, if you are doing that guy who recorded everything for the podcast, if you're doing that 24/7 or whatnot, and you're always performing, naturally, you're just gonna feel pooped. You're gonna feel downright pooped, my guy.
And I think and that's another thing that, because I definitely feel like I'm in a transition phase. I've really enjoyed not creating for like the first time in like a couple of years, right? And being able to take that break, and especially as I'm in school, because it's like you got school, you got your own work because you need to pay, and then you have this creative stuff on top. I'm excited to get out of school. I love school, but I'm excited to have work take up all that space and hopefully a lot more time. But I also know that the nature of my creation is going to be different, right? So I've never been one for, crazy schedules or posting every week. But for the last year, I posted a podcast episode every single month. That was a goal I wanted to have. But historically, I've struggled with that weekly stuff because I can tire myself out a lot. So what I'm kind of transitioning to is more stuff like Main Street Mythology, which is a self-contained, 4 or 5 episodes, 8 episodes, whatever, that I work on. And then once all the episodes are done, then I start releasing it. So it's not like a weekly thing. It's not like I'm constantly, it's like whatever the project's working on, I'll devote the time that it needs. I'll take the time that I need so I can stay healthy and enjoy my time and my family and my friends. And still hopefully put out good stuff. And I think that that's going to work out well for me, because the stuff that I've produced so far under that umbrella, I have enjoyed far more than the stuff that I've put out weekly or monthly or anything like that. So I'm very excited to pursue that, and we'll kind of see what the future holds. But I'm definitely enjoying the time.
Because the future could very well put you back in that position, where you kind of do have to do it more frequently or whatnot.
But and for my job, I'm sure I'll have to. Like if I ever get paid for this stuff, like enough to make a living wage, like that's going to be regular. But it's a very different energy than the energy of you taking your own time and your own soul and your own this and creating something every month kind of thing.
And having a separation, like having side projects kind of helps with that too. I feel like having side bigger things that you're working on amidst like the weekly craziness or whatnot. Right now this is kind of considered a side project almost to the stuff I do on Cakecore, which we upload like 5 or 6 times a week. And it's just like I feel like it almost strengthens both projects, though, to have 2 things running back and forth, just to have a different stimulus on your mind. But naturally, everything comes different when you start getting paid. Jobs work a little bit differently because you kind of start to see it as a job, and that might affect your enjoyment level for better or for worse. You might be, on one hand, I can now buy better equipment for this and it feels great. On the other hand, it might feel like this is a grind all of a sudden, and it didn't used to be a grind or something, but that's all stuff that I'm sure everyone will figure out on the way. But I think we've covered some good here, Talon, and I think we're about ready to wrap this podcast up. Is there any closing thoughts you'd like to share about collaboration or networking or whatnot, or anything else we covered today?
Not really. I mean, be brave, be kind, and you'll be set.
Be brave, be kind, be clear, be professional to the extent that you are. Don't specifically not be yourself to record something, but make it clear to people what they're getting themselves into. And just be active in communities, be present, be there, make people understand that you're there too. Even if you're just not constantly talking to them, just letting them know where you stand with content creation and how you're willing to be involved with other people's projects and how you're willing to get other people in your projects. Just having that knowledge down there is good and will definitely ease the process of bringing people in. It's ultimately not super difficult to bring people into your project. It's really not. What the difficult part is just maintaining that and making sure everybody's carrying their weight and whatnot and getting the project to fruition. Scheduling is obviously another thing. And I feel like we could do a whole podcast episode specifically on organizing this stuff with, tips on scheduling and
just pre-production.
Pre-production. I mean, that should be the name of the next episode we do, Talon. It's just straight up pre-production. I mean, that's pretty much pre-production, and then we'll have another one later called post-production. Those are the 2 big ones or whatnot. That takes up most of the time of creation anyway. Talon, is there anything you would like to share about what you're doing right now, or send people off to find you in socials and whatnot?
Like I said, I'm kind of in between things right now, so I have not been as active on the creation side. But if you haven't already, you can follow me on Twitter at Newton's Darkroom, or on Instagram too, for that matter. And check out the podcast. I mentioned it here, but Main Street Mythology is one of the shows that I'm most proud that I've done. It's all out on iTunes, Spotify, podcasts, whatever, wherever you get your podcast. So I guess that's my plug for today is go listen to Main Street Mythology, because I've certainly been nostalgic for it the last couple of weeks or so.
There you go. Yeah, and from what I've seen, I don't think I've seen the whole thing, but it's crazy the amount of effort you put into that. Like, it's very noticeable. I think both as a creator and as a viewer. Like, I think people who don't create will still be able to appreciate the amount of work you put into that. So make sure you guys check that out when you get the opportunity. As for myself, here on Patreon, but also I'll be uploading these topics into clips on YouTube. So if you ever want to revisit these in a more segmented form, you can always do that. I will also be uploading more tutorial stuff over on PatNet Games channel. And then, of course, you can check out Cakecore for your usual collaborative gameplay stuff. So that's where you could find me. Thanks for joining me, Talon, and thank you guys for watching. And we'll see you guys next month.